Hello everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Liv. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for stopping by because today we are going to be talking about all the new exciting book releases coming out in the next 3 months. Walking you guys through the months of April, May, and June, and let me just tell you there are quite a few new releases coming out in April. Most of these are your typical fantasy, mystery, thriller. If you've been on my channel here for a while, you probably know what to expect just from my reading taste from my previous videos. I think I have even maybe 1 or 2 graphic novels thrown into the mix here, but the majority is actually in April, and there are quite a few that I personally am excited for. I know there's probably so many other books coming out during this time, but I just like to keep my own personal list of books I know I need to know the dates for. You will see me there at Barnes & Noble on that release Tuesday picking up some of these books. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in because these are typically a little bit longer videos, just sharing with you guys all the different books and what they're about. Let's go ahead and jump right into the month of April. Starting us off with the Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. Sally Hepworth is one of those authors that I have slowly learned to love. The first book I ever read was The Good Sister, and I was a little bit let down only because people kept telling me that she writes thrillers, and that's definitely not the case. It's a little bit more literary suspense, but I have really come to love her writing, love her style, and I'm actually going to get to meet her in the month of April, which will be super exciting. But this book takes place in a small, cozy, coastal town, and there's a couple that lives near like a cliff or a ledge of some sort going down to a big body of water, and apparently there's a lot of people that, trigger warning for this book, tend to jump off. You definitely don't want to tread lightly going into this book. I can already tell it's going to be super intense, but the husband of the couple is known for trying to save these people and kind of get them to change their mind, but apparently the husband knows one of the victims and this whole kind of mystery starts to unravel. I don't know where Sally Hepworth is going to take the story with this one. It definitely comes across like it's going to be more thrillery than her other books, so obviously I am excited to jump into this one myself. I'm excited to meet the author finally and just see what she's all about, and I think at this point on I am basically going to be buying every single book that she writes. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. She is also the author that wrote A River Enchanted, which I have yet to read. As far as I know, this is a young adult historical fiction fantasy romance, which sounds very intriguing, but what actually had me was Shadow and Bone meets lore in this epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. I do not know much about this one. I'm going into it blind, but because the author was such a big hit with her other book, I really would love to read that one first and then finally read her newer book. This is about 2 people who work at this gazette. They are both writers, they're both journalists, but Iris starts receiving these notes anonymously, but little does she know it's actually from her enemy at the gazette where she works, and they just somehow form this connection or this bond, and I'm just really excited to see where that goes, especially because I love novels or books that have letters or notes within the book or the story, so I think that's just going to be a really fun element. The next book is actually another historical fiction fantasy, but it's more adult and it's definitely more gothic. It's called The Last Heir to Blackwood Library by Hester Fox. First of all, let us take a moment to appreciate this stunning cover. I absolutely am obsessed with this green, but I am just going to read you guys the synopsis of this one specifically because every single word or sentence or phrase was just a huge buzzword for me, and this just sounds so incredibly good. It's also going to be a standalone. It's going to be a shorter standalone, right around 300 pages, which I think is very interesting for a fantasy, but I personally am so excited for it. In post-World War I England, a young woman inherits a mysterious library and must untangle its powerful secrets. With the stroke of a pen, 23-year-old 30-year-old Ivy Radcliffe becomes Lady Heyworth, owner of a sprawling estate on the Yorkshire moors. Ivy has never heard of Blackwood Abbey or of the ancient bloodline from which she's descended. With nothing to keep her in London since losing her brother in the Great War, she warily makes her way to her new home. The abbey is foreboding, the servants reserved and suspicious, but there's a treasure waiting behind locked doors, a magnificent library. Despite cryptic warnings from the staff, Ivy feels irresistibly drawn to its dusty shelves where familiar works mingle with strange texts, and she senses something else in the library too, a presence that seems to have a will of its own. Oh my goodness, if this does not sound like the perfect bookish, bookworm, book nerd book ever, I don't know what does. A mysterious library right there had me sold, but the fact that there could be ghosts and suspicious things happening, and I cannot wait to pick this one up. It is coming so soon. It's going to be releasing on April 4th, and I am so here for it. The next book is a new horror mystery thriller that is adult called The Insatiable Sisters by Rachel Eve Moulton. This book I feel like is definitely going to be one that you want to go into more blind, but I will just tell you, told from the perspectives of four flawed, fascinating women, The Insatiable Volt Sisters is a lush, enthralling fable about monsters, real and imagined, and these sometimes painful bonds of sisterhood. Right there, I love any book that has a great sister dynamic. It also sounds like it has some type of magical island that these girls go back to. They kind of relive their childhood because their father and I think their mother has died, and I don't know what in the world is gonna happen. I don't know if we're gonna get flashbacks. I am just very interested in this book because I have never heard of this author before. The cover is very intriguing to me, especially because it looks like there are mermaids or sirens on the cover, and it sounds like it could be a good one for summer if it has to do with an island. So I think this is gonna be one that I keep my eye on. I may wait for some more reviews to come around, but it does look like it has the potential to be really fascinating. Another thriller that I definitely think is going to be for fans of Finlay Donovan. It sounds like it's going to be dark, but also very humorous. It's called How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katy Brent. Definitely very forward with that title, but the synopsis says, meet Kitty Collins, friend, lover, killer. He was following me, that guy from the nightclub who wouldn't leave me alone. I hadn't intended to kill him, of course, but I wasn't displeased when I did, and despite the mess I made, I appeared to get away with it. That's where my addiction started. I've got a taste for revenge, and quite frankly, I'm killing it. A deliciously dark, hilariously twisted story about friendship, love, and murder. For fans of My Sister the Serial Killer, How to Kill Your Family, and Killing Eve, people that love those shows or stories are supposed to love this book. I personally love Killing Eve, so this just sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. Such a fun time, but also definitely hardcore Finlay Donovan vibes. Next, we have probably one of my most anticipated, if not the most anticipated of this list, is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. For those of you that watched me vlog Part of Your World, you know that it was totally unexpected that I fell in love with this author. She definitely isn't one that's been at the top of my list for a long time, but I know that I need to go back and read her backlist. In fact, I have bought the rest of her The Friend Zone series, and I am just so excited for this one because we follow the main character of Part of Your World. We actually follow her best friend in this one, and I know she's a doctor. I know there's like letters and notes exchanged in this one. It's a second chance romance, so lots of buzzwords for me, especially in romance, but I'm not interested in reading the synopsis because I just want it to be so much fun when I go into it and experience it and finally read it. So you have to add this one to your list if you love Abby Jimenez at all, like I do. The next romance book on my list is The Matchmaker by Catherine Walsh. I was obsessed with holiday romance over Christmas. I feel like I got so many people and so many of my friends to read that, and they loved it just as much as I did. So I was so thrilled to see that she's going to be releasing a new book already coming April 18th. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of the synopsis because it sounds like absolute perfection. Katy Collins has barely ever left her tiny Irish village of Ennisbon. Why would she? With its tight-knit community, friendly local pub, surrounded by rolling hills and perfectly mysterious forests, it's a place of peaceful beauty. Or it was peaceful, until Callum Dempsey turned up, a hotshot developer with zero eye for beauty or charm in spite of his chiseled jaw. He's not only building some hideous hotel just outside the village, but now he's also planning to knock down Ennisbon's only remaining pub to make way for a good view from the golf course. It's the final blow to the village and the last straw for Katy, who refuses to see her home disappear. So we definitely have a little bit more of a plot of her trying to save this town. I will say I already started reading this because I have an arc, and the vibes of like the small town Irish village are so cute, are so cozy, and I just can't wait to see how this love story unfolds. I was already enjoying some of the side characters or friends of Katy in this book. It was already really humorous, and I just love Catherine Walsh's books because you not only get this super like heartfelt story, but you're laughing and there's more plot to it than just the romance. And I like to say it's a cross between like Christina Lauren and Emily Henry, but I don't know, I don't want to throw names out there because I feel like that's going to hype it up too much. But if you have never read a Catherine Walsh, definitely put her on your radar. Next, we have The Last Word by Taylor Adams. If you've read Taylor Adams before, you know he is a mystery thriller author, but this one I am a little bit skeptical of, but I'm also very excited for. So I'm definitely going into this one with a little bit of lower expectations because I really didn't enjoy Hairpin Bridge all that much, but the synopsis of this one sounds absolutely crazy. Apparently there's this girl that gave an author a 1-star review of his horror novel, and he takes it so far as to try to kill her, I guess, or punish her of some sort. I have no idea. It sounds like a wild ride. I haven't read the synopsis of this one in a while, but the fact that there's an author chasing down a reviewer just sounds like such an insane thing to me, but also kind of scary because I feel like it could be something that's fairly realistic. Not that anyone is that crazy, but it's definitely an idea that I feel like I'm going to be way more excited about and way more interested in than his previous book. The next book, which is going to come as no surprise to anyone, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I cannot believe we're getting another Emily Henry book, and this one sounds so incredibly good. Basically, the biggest trope in this one is fake dating because we have our couple who actually broke up, I think 6 months ago, but they still want to attend their friend's wedding. It takes place in Maine in a small little cottage, which sounds so cute, but they have to act like they are still together. So it sounds like we're going to be running into a one-bed trope. It sounds like we're going to be running into a very messy, but knowing Emily Henry, a very, very, very fun time. Next, we have In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune, which I'm also over the moon excited about, but I also feel a little guilty because I never read his book that came out before this, and I feel like I should probably do that before this one comes out. And I also think it's really funny that we had Grady Hendrix talking about puppets, now we have TJ Klune that's talking about puppets, but this one says, author TJ Klune invites you deep into the heart of a peculiar forest and on the extraordinary journey of a family assembled from spare parts. This just sounds very quirky, but knowing TJ Klune is going to be full of lush descriptions, a great atmosphere, and of course he usually writes about the found family trope, which I also love so much. It's just something that's near and dear to my heart. So I am very excited about this one. It definitely feels a little bit more upbeat in comparison to his previous one. I think Under the Whispering Door. I think that one had to do a lot with life and death and sounded like it was kind of sad, and I'm not often in the mood for a sad book. So this one definitely sounds like it's going to be very unique, but also such a fun time. Next, we have another adult mystery thriller that is a book about books called Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. I've never heard of this author before. I literally just found out about this book yesterday and it sounds perfect. It almost sounds like it could be good for fans of cozy mysteries, but we're definitely gonna find out. In this utterly unforgettable debut, a disaffected, true crime obsessed bookseller develops a dangerous obsession with a colleague. We have some dark family history, we have a bookstore, and we have lots of pumpkin spice lattes apparently. So I am just super excited for this one, but I can also see me waiting to finally read this in the fall time. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts myself, or at least I used to, and so I feel like that is definitely going to add a really fun touch or a really fun element to the story. The next book I want to talk about is definitely going to be one that you want to look up for trigger warnings, but I will also just tell you now it has to do with an eating disorder, but it is called The Hungry Ghost by Victoria Ying, and it's actually a graphic novel. So having those intense visuals on top of that topic already is definitely going to be one that you want to be very aware of or careful of going into, but just from the cover of this, it just looks absolutely stunning, and personally I cannot wait to see how the author brings it to life. It is young adult, but it definitely has a lot to do, like I said, with mental health. It looks like it also has to do with a pretty toxic mother-daughter relationship, so again, just be aware of that going in, but I really think that this could be a very impactful and a very much needed graphic novel to put out in the world. Sometimes I just really like not those like cute, cozy, fun graphic novels, but sometimes the hard-hitting ones are just as good. For example, I loved Dancing at the Pity Party and I cried halfway through that graphic novel. So this one is definitely going to be another sad one, but also one that I'm really looking forward to. Now we're going to be diving into the month of May. Like I said, there was definitely a big chunk of them in April, but the first one coming out in May that I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm looking forward to is Meet Me at the Lake by Carley Fortune. I read Every Summer After, and unfortunately I read that right after Love in Other Words. There's definitely a lot of similarities between the two, and Love in Other Words almost reads a little bit more young adult, and I just didn't love Every Summer After as much as I wanted to, but because I think I made the wrong decision to read those back to back, I do want to give Carley Fortune another chance because her writing was absolutely impeccable. I read her book in a day, and I don't know what this one is about. I'm definitely going into it blind, other than the fact that I just want to give this author a second chance. I do know our male interest is an artist, and I think this takes place in Toronto, but seriously, I know nothing about it other than the fact that I really do want to read from this author again. I guess these two somehow spend 24 hours together, but then they end up going about their lives, and maybe they come back together. Maybe it's a second chance thing. Again, I'm going into it completely blind, but I did just want to put this on y'all's radar because it's definitely going to be one that I pick up as well. The next book coming out on May 2nd is The Marriage Act by John Mars, and I'm kind of surprised I'm actually putting this on this list because I still to this day have never read a John Mars book. I know, I really need to get on it. Maybe I'll read one at the end of April. I have actually watched the Netflix show of The One and I loved it, even though I've heard it's different from the book, so I will be reading the book, but his ideas and more dystopian kind of concepts really intrigue me, and this one also sounds nothing short of amazing. What if marriage was the law? Dare you disobey? Britain, the near future. A right-wing government believes it has the answer to society's ills. The Sanctity of Marriage Act, which actively encourages marriage as the norm, punishing those who choose to remain single. But four couples are about to discover just how impossible relationships can be when the government is monitoring every aspect of our personal lives, monitoring every word, every minor disagreement, and will use every tool in its arsenal to ensure everyone will love, honor, and obey. I have no idea what any of that is going to mean for this story and for these couples, but I can bet you I'm definitely going to be buying this because I definitely need to find out. Again, Another author I have not read from before, but I think this is finally going to be my chance because this book looks and sounds like perfection. It is called The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. It's the start of a new trilogy just called the Library Trilogy, but let me read you the description because oh my gosh, does this sound so magical. It says, a boy has lived his whole life trapped within a vast library, older than empires and larger than cities. A girl has spent hers in a tiny settlement out on the dust where nightmares stalk and no one goes. The world has never even noticed them. That's about to change. Their stories spiral around each other across worlds and time. This is a tale of truth and lies and hearts and the blurring of one into another, a journey on which knowledge erodes certainty and on which, though the pen may be mightier than the sword, blood will be spilled and cities will burn. It's also tagged as science fiction or science fiction fantasy. It sounds to me from the description that it could have some type of time travel elements or parallel worlds of some sort, but oh my gosh, this cover alone, the synopsis is so vague, but I honestly love when authors have a very vague description because then it doesn't give away everything in the actual story. So, oh, I am just so excited for this one. I literally cannot wait. Next, I have another adult fantasy actually. I think this is the first debut adult novel. It's called A Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand. I still have not read anything by this author, but I hear so many good things. I'm going into this completely blind, other than I know that it's a fantasy romance, and if someone tells me it's romantasy, I will more than likely read it. Plus this cover is absolutely stunning, but I do know there are demons and just other crazy things that happen. I think our main character actually doesn't have any power of her own. There's a very good or very interesting family dynamic, but that's just the basic of the foundation that I know. So I am once again going into this completely blind, but it probably will be the first Claire Legrand book that I read and hopefully not the last. Next, we have The True Love Experiment that comes out on May 16th by none other than Christina Lauren, and I have heard nothing but spicy things about this book. Not that it's what I actually care about, but this one actually has a little bit more to do with fame in Hollywood, which I think is going to be an interesting twist on what they typically write about. But I know a girl named Felicity, I think, is searching for like maybe her next show, and we have the guy who's a producer who's looking for his next female lead. I don't know what happens from there, but I do know the main girl, Felicity or Frizzy, is actually in the Soulmate equation. So I'm not exactly sure if it's required reading that you read that one first or if you can just dive into this one, but I may go ahead and read that other one first before this just to be sure. I'm just really ready and down for another Christina Lauren. Next, we have Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little bit skeptical about because I started and never continued on with Babel. Not that it was terrible, not that it was bad, the narration was amazing, but it definitely read a little bit more textbook, and this one is actually described as being pretty humorous, so I think I might give it a second chance. I do still own the Poppy War as well, so I am going to try out those books, not giving up on this author because I've heard amazing things. Authors June Hayward and Athena were supposed to be twin rising stars, same year at Yale, same debut year in publishing, but Athena's a cross-genre literary darling and June didn't even get a paperback release. Nobody wants stories about basic white girls, June thinks. So when June witnesses Athena's death in a freak accident, she acts on impulse. She steals Athena's just finished masterpiece, an experimental novel about the unsung contributions of Chinese laborers to the British and French war efforts during World War I. So what if June edits Athena's novel and sends it to her agent as her own work? So, wow, that is very insane to say the least. I really want to know what this freak accident is, and I really want to find out if June gets found out for, you know, taking credit for someone else's work, which is absolutely insane. So needless to say, I'm curious about this one, but again, going into it a little bit skeptical and just knowing that R.F. Kuang is an actual genius, and it's going to take some thought for me to actually put in the work to enjoy her stories. Next, we have The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. cipher that looks so interesting and so phenomenal. It is a fantasy, it's a book about books, it's adult, there's mystery thriller. I am just so intrigued by this one, and the cover is also freaking adorable. I love it. This was also blurbed by the queen, V.E. Schwab herself, who said, "Clever, dark, and hopeful. A love letter to reading and the power that childhood stories have over us long after we've grown up." Are you kidding me? That sounds so incredible. Whew, if it's blurbed by V.E. Schwab, I will more than likely pick it up. You can guarantee that. Years ago, a reclusive, mega best-selling children's author quit writing under mysterious circumstances. Suddenly, he resurfaces with a brand new book and a one-of-a-kind competition, offering a prize that will change the winner's life in this absorbing and whimsical novel. We have our main character named Lucy, who apparently when she was a young child used to read this series called the Clock Island series, but when she comes across the competition held by this mysterious author, apparently the real Clock Island comes to exist and there's other competitors involved. There's so much packed into this synopsis, so I'm just gonna let you guys go read it for yourself. This may or may not end up being a book club for one of my Patreon picks. I'm just gonna call it right now because this just sounds like it is gonna be absolutely phenomenal. The reviews are already blowing this out of the water, so I can guarantee this is probably gonna be one that ends up blowing up. Next, we have another contemporary book that is coming out, kind of a romance as well, called The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley by Courtney Walsh. She's very much known for her Christmas romances, but this one apparently is going to be very different, and she seems very excited about it, so that makes me excited about it. But it says Isadora Bentley believes that happiness is something that flat out doesn't exist in her life and never will. As a university researcher, Isadora keeps to herself as much as possible. She avoids the students she's supposed to befriend and mentor, she stays away from her neighbors and lives her own quiet, organized life in her own quiet, organized apartment, and she will never get involved in a romantic relationship again, especially with another academic. But on her 13th birthday, Isadora does something completely out of character. The young woman who never does anything on a whim makes an impulse purchase of a magazine featuring a silly article detailing the 31 ways to be happy. Isadora decides to create her own secret research project, proving the writer of the ridiculous piece wrong. So I guess she goes on like these adventures to try to find real happiness, and it just sounds like it's gonna be so cute, and I'm sure it's just gonna be amazing with all the people she meets along the way, and of course hopefully maybe a love interest. So I'm just so excited that we're getting another Courtney Walsh book so soon. Next, we have none other than the next Ruth Ware book called 0 Days, and truth be told, I did not read The It Girl because I kept hearing such mixed reviews, but this one actually sounds a lot more intriguing to me than that one did, so I am very excited to see what's going to go down in this book. But it says it's about a woman in a race against time to clear her name and find her husband's murderer. Hired by companies to break into buildings and hack security systems, Jack and her husband Gabe are the best penetration specialists in the business. But after a routine assignment goes horribly wrong, Jack arrives home to find her husband dead. To add to her horror, the police are closing in on their suspect, which is her, of course. Suddenly on the run and quickly running out of options, Jack must decide who she can trust as she circles closer to the real killer. Suddenly on the run and quickly running out of options, Jack must decide who she can trust as she circles closer to the real killer. Definitely doesn't like catch my interest right away, but I mean, I don't know, I'm just excited to see where she's gonna take this story because I'll basically read anything Ruth Ware writes. I feel like just the way that she paces her stories and her writing is so addicting. Of course, I'm just gonna pick this one up because everyone else is gonna be, and I just get FOMO. Another thriller that is my #1 most anticipated of the year, of course, is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Yes, he's had some maybe not so great books, just gonna say it right now. The House Across the Lake was not it for me. Sorry, but that just makes me even more excited to get another book by him because hopefully I'll enjoy this one a lot more. I've heard it's very mysterious, it's more gothic. Riley Sager returns with a gothic thriller about a young caregiver assigned to work for a woman accused of Lizzie Borden-like massacre decades earlier. The only thing I'm aware of going going into this book is there's a giant family massacre. I think it might even have like a haunted house aspect or something of the like where this massacre happened. And let me just say, Home Before Dark is my favorite Riley Sager book. So as you can imagine, I'm just very excited that he's dabbling or going back into kind of the creepy house gothic kind of thriller vibe. And I'm just so incredibly excited. I've been trying so hard to get an arc of this book, but unfortunately just not having luck with any of that. So I will just have to be reading it when you all read it as well. Obviously very, very excited for this one, like I feel like most of us are. You guys, we are finally getting another Ashley Poston book, and I am so excited. She's also coming to my town in June, right after this publishes, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited to finally meet her and tell her just how much I loved The Dead Romantics. But man, this one sounds like it's gonna be just as good, but I'm only gonna read one sentence for you because I really want to go into this one blind. I have an arc of it, but to be honest, I'm kind of waiting and putting it off because I'm waiting for the perfect moment to finally pick it up. An overworked book publicist with a perfectly planned future hits a snag when she falls in love with her temporary roommate, only to discover he lives 7 years in the past. This is exactly why I love Ashley Poston, is as a fantasy reader, I appreciate those magical realism elements that she tends to weave into her stories. She does it in such a way that is so smart, but it flows so organically to where it's not cheesy. The Dead Romantics made me cry, and I have no doubt this one is going to make me cry as well. So yeah, if you guys loved The Dead Romantics, or even if you haven't read that one yet, please pick it up because I just know this one is going to be just as good. Alright friends, those are the books that I personally am very excited for that's coming out in the next 3 months, but because you guys know my taste so well, please let me know if I missed any that you guys think I would be particularly excited for, or if there's one on your list that you are super excited for. I can definitely always be swayed to make my list even longer, and I am just so eager and so excited for these next books that are coming out very, very soon because they're some of my favorite authors that I'm just obsessed with. I don't know that there is any coming out later in the year that I'm as excited for as some of these, so April's gonna be a big month for me, a big month for my bank account, and I'm already prepping now because I'm gonna be broke because there's just so many good, incredible books to read in the month of April, and I'm so freaking excited. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it helpful and maybe you heard of some new books, but thank you so much for watching this video and always supporting my channel. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video.